Hey crafty friends, it's Joy here, and I am really excited to share how I used the Layer It Sunflower and the Checking In background stamp. So the products that I'm using are the Mini Strips Harvest stamp set, the Mini Strips die, the Checking In background, it's so cute, and the Layer It Sunflower dies, along with the Tag Stacklets 2. I'm going to be using Oat Milk, Sweet Basil, Dijon, Honey, Chocolate Truffle, Mocha, and Versamark inks. I'm also going to be using some gold embossing powder, gold drip drops, blender brushes, and oat milk cardstock. Actually, I'm starting with some sugar cube cardstock as well, and I have die cut out all of my images. I have a large sunflower and a small sunflower. And the two background pieces to the sunflower for both sizes, I am ink blending with the honey ink. And then the smaller one, I'm going to be doing Dijon ink. And I'm just going to ink blend those with my bitty blender brushes. And I like that the ink is catching the edges of the petals of these sunflowers. Then we have the two center pieces for our sunflowers, two sizes. You have a larger and a smaller. I'm going to be ink blending the top piece with Mocha, so this is a lighter color. And then the background piece, you're going to see through those little holes, I will be ink blending with Chocolate Truffle. That is a little bit darker. And these are going to layer on top of each other, as well as those other ones that we just ink blended. Then I have my leaves. I die cut 6 leaves. I only end up using 5, and I'm going to be ink blending those with Sweet Basil. I'm starting just kind of darker at the bottom, maybe up the sides a little bit, and the tips of the leaves will be just a tad bit lighter. So it's really quick and easy to ink blend. If you did not want to ink blend, you could use the matching cardstock to these inks instead. In my MISTI, I have the Checking In background, and we are going to add this to our flowers. And I just think it totally made these flowers even cuter. So I have my two pieces, that is the honey, and I'm just going to do tone on tone. So because we ink blended on the background, it is lighter. Now that we're going to be stamping it with the coordinating ink, then it'll be darker. So this checkered background will be darker. The same would go for if you're using your matching cardstock. You might have to ink it up a couple times to get the ink a little bit darker, but it would be that same concept. So I'm going to press that down, and then we're going to have that fun checkered background on our flowers. Isn't that so cute? Oh, I love it. And I'm going to do the same thing for the Dijon ink. So I'm going to ink that up and then press that down in my MISTI. And because this is a red rubber stamp, I did take the foam insert out of my MISTI. And then let's take a peek at these. Oh, they are so, so cute. I also want to do the background. So I have Oat Milk cardstock. It is A2 sized, and I'm using my Oat Milk ink. So this is the ink on top of the cardstock, so you can see how that looks. I'm going to ink that up one more time because I have a few spots that just didn't quite get a good enough inking. And now we have our background. Then on another piece of Oat Milk cardstock, I am going to stamp the sentiment, the Mini Strips Harvest, and I am using the honey ink to ink that up. It's a little bit more lensed towards the orange yellow, and so I thought that would be really pretty. Then I'm going to use the coordinating Mini Strips die. I'm going to tape that in place. I can run that through my die cut machine, and then we will have all of our sentiments already die cut. On that leftover piece of Oat Milk cardstock, I am taking the smallest tag from the Tag Stacklets 2, and we're going to use that for our sentiment. Let's adhere our two center pieces together. So the large on large and then the smaller on the smaller. And I'm just using some liquid glue to put that in place. And then I want to make strips out of my background. So this is A2 size. I'm going to cut it in half. So 4 1/4 will be 2 1/8. And then I'm going to cut that in half again. So it's about 1 1/16. And I kind of just eyeballed it. And I did that for all of those pieces. Then I need to take a small piece off of each one of these strips because I want to have a space in between. So it's just the tiniest little piece, and I'll show you here when I'm done trimming that off. But again, this is going to create a space between each of our strips for our background, but that's about the size I cut off. So I have a piece of just a white card panel in the back. I'm starting on the two ends, adhering down my strips, lining them up on the sides, tops and bottom, and then I can place my other two ones in the center and just kind of eyeballing the distance, making sure that all the distance is the same. Then I want to add some gold embossing to this. We're going to do a ton of gold heat embossing. I am taking Versamark ink, running it around the edges of my background, and I can just put that aside with the embossing powder on it, and we can heat emboss everything. I'm doing the same thing for the centers of the flowers. For each layer of the flowers, so the background and the smaller piece, so you have your back piece and your front piece, just a little bit of Versamark ink on the edges, sprinkling on that gold embossing powder. I'm going to do the same thing for the leaves, but I'm going to dip those. And I didn't show it on camera, but I did the same thing for the edge of the tag that we die cut. Then I'm just going to take my heat gun, heat that until it's nice and melted. You'll know it's melted when it's shiny. You don't want to overheat because it can go past the shiny and it's dull, and then it just doesn't look good anymore. So I'm going to heat emboss everything. Let's adhere our flowers together and our centers. I just think these look so cute. I'm going to do the same thing for the small one, and then we can get this laid out. I am adding some foam adhesive strips behind the flowers and the sentiment. So I've got my two flowers here. I'm going to overlap that small one onto the big one. The tag I'm going to place inside there. And then my sentiment says, "Happy Harvest to you and yours." And I'm just going to line that up on the tag and let it kind of overlap that smaller flower. And then we have the leaves there. I just laid everything out ahead of time so my leaves are not glued down. So I'm going to use a little bit of liquid glue just at the base and tuck that down. I like to have the tips of my leaves lifted up. It gives it more dimension without having to add any foam adhesive behind it. So again, just a little bit of liquid glue at the base of the petals, tucking that under. And like I said, I only ended up using 5 of the petals, or excuse me, the leaves. And then I want to finish on the sunflowers with some gold drip drops. I'm going to do 3 on each one. And then let's take a look at this up close. And I just am in love with all of the gold embossing on this. And I love that checking in background stamp on the flowers. I just think it's so fun. And then bringing that into the background. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching. You can find all of these products at the Tailored Expressions web store at tailoredexpressions.com.